morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. Today, we are on a panel for the low-cost replicable innovations from Asia, and I'm joined by two panelists, physical, and I have two other panelists who are virtual, together with one of Curtis's colleagues, Rita, who's also virtual, joining us from Indonesia. So today we'll be discussing the challenges of replicating innovations within Asia. So we have representatives from Indonesia, we have representatives from Thailand, as well as from India and Cambodia. Before I take too much time introducing myself, I would love to talk a little bit about my panelists. On my left, I have Shruti More from the Samphia Foundation, and she'll be talking about therapy on wheels. Shruti is from India, and next to her, we have David Curtis from Light for the World, working in Cambodia. Thank you so much for joining us physically, and I hope you guys have been having an amazing time at the Zero Project Conference so far. And online, I think we have Sirinart Tongsiri from Maharakham University in Thailand. Hi, Siri. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have Rahma Utami from Suarise, Indonesia, who will be talking about the Tetanggan Accessibilitas Award that they received. And we also have Rita Triharnani, sorry about that, from PRY Indonesia, who will be assisting David with his presentation. So just before we start off, I'd like to remind our speakers who are online to remember to unmute yourselves when it's your time to present, just so we don't have any technical issues. Thank you. And so without further ado, I will hand it over to Siri, who will be talking about their initiative at the Maharakham University in Thailand. Over to you, Siri.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon from here, and I think it's good morning to you. Thank you very much for Zero Project for having our work Home for Life to present in the 2022 conference. My name is Sirinart, and I will be presenting on behalf of our team, Universal Design Center, Maharakham University, as I will call MSU UDC for short. Next slide, please.
Siri, would you be able to speak just a little bit louder, please? Thank you. I think it's a little bit soft here on our side.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is it okay now?
Yeah. Yes, much better. Thanks.
Yeah. Our work started from the Home Modification Research Project, funded by the Health System Research Institute, Thailand. The project is the collaboration between the Faculty of Medicine, Faculty of Architecture, Urban Design and Creative Arts, and also the Faculty of Pharmacy in the same university. We are from Maharakham, which is located in the northeastern part of Thailand. It's around 400 kilometers from Bangkok, so we are very much close to the people living in community. The main objective of MSU UDC is to provide knowledge and set up capacity building workshops for staff and also for policy makers responsible for home modifications for persons with disabilities, or together with older adults and those who are in need for the modification to improve their functions and their quality of life. The picture here shows our mock-up room to illustrate how the appropriate house can be for those in need, for those who have difficulties in their activity of daily living. And we have the photo showing our courses. Next slide, please. Our work are very much aligned with the Person with Disability Empowerment Act, which is endorsed in 2007. We align with the accessibility of persons with disabilities indicated in the Act. At the moment, the barriers of the service are limited budget, and people tend to understand that home modification is an expensive, and we can do only one type of the modification or the one-size-fits-all design, leading to the ineffective of the accommodation, because it's quite impossible for the only one model to accommodate all range of difficulties. Moreover, the home modification service is also an example of the silo mentality of service provider from multiple organizations, leading to ineffective utilization of resources and poor outcomes. Next slide, please. Therefore, this is what MSUUDC offers. We use the multidisciplinary approach from start to finish, meaning that we invite staff from various organizations, those from medical sectors, also from the social service sectors and local government. We invited them to come to sit together. As shown in photos here, we asked participants to participate in the same workshop, to evaluate persons with disabilities home together, to design together, to build and to follow up together. All are done as a teamwork. By this approach, we can minimize the silo management by coordinating resources from various sources. Next slide, please. Here is the origin of the resources. We have resources from Ministry of Social Development and Human Securities, Ministry of Internal Affairs, the National Health Security Office, local governments, and recently we have resources coming from real estate companies as their CSR project as well. Altogether, persons with disabilities and their families can also devote their money to build their own house as well. Next slide, please. This idea is also disseminated among our participants that the home modification are affordable. And from this photo, it is the workshop. We use dialogue and disability role play to let our participants to understand difficulties encountered by persons with disabilities. The most important thing that we want them to understand is that body structure of person with disability is very important and it must be taken into account in the home design. Next slide, please. And this is an example of our modification for a man who's suffering from stroke with left side weakness. Before modification, the toilet looked like this on the photo of your left-hand side. And after modification, he can use toilet quite easily with ramp more comfortably, and we can minimize his risk of falling. Next slide, please. The model that we apply ramps to the toilet, it costs approximately 500 euros. And with this slide, we show the partly rebuilt of the house, and it costs around 1,000 euros. Next slide, please. But sometimes we have to go way beyond our expectation. We have to build a new house, as shown in this photo, because the house is very poor condition. And with this model, the cost of construction is around 1,500 euros. Next slide, please. So the impact that we created is that we have trained 21 teams so far by 2021. And we started from the team in Maharakham and then scaling up to other parts of the country, to the north, to the central, and to the south as well. At the moment, at least 110 homes have been modified, and this number is keeping more and more coming, as we heard from our colleagues. And we recently come up with the cost to train the trainer for let them train more teams in their areas as well. And the very good news is that from our research, the government doubled the budget for home modification for persons with disabilities. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And this is what we are going to do in the future is that we would like to scale up the project to reach more and more persons with disabilities to be able to get access to this service. And this is also the starting point for other services indicated in the Act as well. And we will conduct more research in this issue and try to find an effective financing system and do continuous quality improvement for the service. And this is all from our MSU UDC. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Siri. It was quite insightful understanding how home modifications can be done in even areas with low infrastructure and things like that. But I will keep my questions for the end of the panel. Next, we have Rahma Utami from Suarise, Indonesia, talking about Tetanggaan Accessibilitas.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Rahma from Indonesia. So I will talk about utilizing competitive advantage to advocate digital accessibility to private sectors. And in this case, we create a movement called Tantangan Aksesibilitas. So next. So I guess everyone here knows that there are 1 billion people in the world, but the thing is, majority of the community is on the global south. And Suarise focus in most likely visually impaired peoples, but not every country like Indonesia or even more in Asia and Africa have the regulation like the global north have. So we don't have the Accessibility Act like the UK, the US, or even the Europe. Next. And when we talk about the importance of your app becoming accessible, well, there's a lot of companies reluctant to do this and give tons of reason, especially when the regulation is not exist. So they perceive it as nice to have, unnecessary, it's costly, we don't have the budget, and they don't have the expertise. And they perceive disability issues as a CSR, the social corporate issues, instead of a business stuffs. And in the end, they consider it's time consuming to develop accessible apps. Next. But the biggest problem is actually the awareness. So like, what is accessibility? I mean, they can use the app. So that is the all question number 0 that I got when we talk about digital accessibility from designers, developer, company. They don't even realize that people with disabilities, especially visually impaired people, use their apps. Next. So we initiate Tantangan Aksesibilitas, in English called Accessibility Challenge, in 2019. The idea is that we compare accessibility level between 2 digital service or company in our videos where one is more accessible than others. And we utilize Gojek and Grab. It's like Uber in other countries. It's a ride-hailing company. And Gojek is Indonesian startup unicorn. Anything done by Gojek will be like the highlight on the technology industry. And the company also have direct impact to the living of the visually impaired people. And they have millions of users in Indonesia. Next. So after we create the videos, it's posted on YouTube, but we also give them to our network, the employee inside the company itself. And we always use the video when we explain how the visually impaired people use phones. And so after distributing the videos, the internal team actually raised the concern to the company decision makers. Although the video view is small, but they consider it's important. So they set disability user research in the end of 2020. And after they got the result of the users, it's not only visually impaired people alone, for the deaf people, from the dyslexia, others, they finally developed internal accessibility team. So it's not official, but it's representative from many of the tribe, like designers, research, developer, so representative of each tribe. And they put the app release into the mainstreaming, so this kind of page will be accessible in this release, and they create their own tribe or department guidelines for each department. And the thing is, we invite them to sharing session in Ally ID, how to get allies for Ally, to share the process. And finally, the tech community start to poke us and ask about what is accessibility to people with disability. Next. So why it is effective? Beyond all the reasons we saw earlier, we can utilize a competitor and competitive advantage. So competitors always have this reactive or preventive from the company. So it will influence their brand image, the PR value, and even though it's not work from the externally, the team who saw the videos will start the empathy, the initiative, and the curiosity about the topic. And moreover, the video itself is demonstrative and presentable for those who ask, what is accessibility? So it's a real case, it's a real result. So we touch that kind of sweet spot. Next. So in order to create this kind of solution, I suggest you to choose the industry well, like which one is direct impact, biggest influence, and the vision missions. And then discuss with the beneficiary, in this case, visually impaired people for me, what is the feature, the necessity, and most of all, keep it simple, like one feature or one type of disability, one effect that they have, qualitative or quantitative, and then distribute, especially to the employer and the employee. And finally, after we have those community interested, we have to capture that to collaborate together to spread the message again to the community. Next. So when we see who is impacted in this, it's not only the visually impaired community in Indonesia, but this also becoming their opening door to other PWD community, which is 20 billion in Indonesia. But the thing is, this issue become a touch point for a company or tech company to explore further accessibility issue that might impacting the whole disability population as well. And well, in terms of Gojek, it's even influenced their business in Southeast Asia. So it's not only the community in Indonesia. I guess that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Rahma. That was incredibly insightful into the situation in Indonesia. And speaking of Indonesia, we'll hand over to David Curtis and his colleague Rita Triharnani. David is from Light for the World and will be talking to us about accessible agriculture. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Sumita. Hello to everyone here in the room, and also good morning, good evening to everyone online. A big thank you to Zero Project and all the whole team, the signers, the captionists, everyone, for really making this incredibly accessible. So really big thank you to everyone for that. As someone that's been lucky and privileged enough to physically be here this last 3 days, I've had many conversations actually that have, both formally and informally, over lunch, in sessions, and 3 themes really emerged. And it's been around connections and partnerships and communication. And I think it's quite timely, especially after what we've gone through in the last couple of years, that these issues around connections and partnerships have really emerged. The reason why I'm saying that is I think they're all quite reflective in the AgriLab and the work that we're about to present. So my name's David Curtis. I'm from People's Action for Inclusive Development, which was formerly Light for the World Cambodia. And I'm really pleased to be presenting today with Rita from Pusat Rehabilitasi YAKKUM, Indonesia, our partner in Indonesia. I will talk briefly about the background of the AgriLab approach, and Rita will give some really solid application sort of details about how it's been implemented in Indonesia. I'm really happy to take questions afterwards as well. Yeah, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so the essence of AgriLab, the why and the how, it's really around conversations. I mean, Cambodia as a country is 80% rural. Agriculture is the backbone of the country. The farmers are the core. I mean, the challenges that farmers face, especially farmers with disabilities, surface through many of the conversations, and then working with them and with other partners as well, with new people that came and joined the conversations, we started to develop some kind of solutions with the farmers. The farmers with disabilities have faced some elements of exclusion, partly physical. Is that okay? Oh, is that okay? Thanks. Partly some issues around a lack of assistive devices or physical challenges, but also some structural challenges, missing out on opportunities, missing out on seed subsidies, on accessing government and non-government initiatives. So there's some challenges that they were telling us about, and we brought all of these together with some new partners into a kind of a lab and started to really discuss. Okay, so the AgriLab was part of our disability inclusion lab, which we kind of trialed in Cambodia. It brought together people that we wouldn't have necessarily worked with usually. So we had engineers. We had a great partnership with Engineers Without Borders. We had design specialists. We had people from academia. We had farmers with disabilities. We had DPOs or OPDs. A real mixture. So everyone trying to sort of work out the solutions to challenges themselves. And we worked through a human-centered design approach using a capacity creative building. I'll talk about that in a minute. Some of the underlying principles: the equalizing power relations. It was really important. Everyone had a voice. I know it's easy to say that, but we really did try to give a voice to everyone in the whole process of discussing the issues and the solutions. The democratic processes over decisions. What would happen to the prototypes? What would we develop? All of the things around that. Solution-based actions. It was very practical because we're working in really rural areas, so people needed practical solutions to challenges. Mutual learning, I think we all learn, everyone that was involved in it. Inclusion of all participants, that was absolutely a value. And person-centered, not technology-centered. We were really focusing on the people, on the farmers, rather than instantly jumping to the technology. And sometimes we had to hold some partners back from that a little bit. So really the focus more on the person. Safety was a big value, and social empowerment, of course. I'm aware of the time, so I'll quickly run through the process. 5 key stages, really. We had the creative capacity building stage when we talked about what is design, encouraged people to really open up mind into being creative with the design. Pre-design, generative design, evaluative design, and post-design. So going through all the stages to develop prototypes. So discussing the challenges, working together with people, looking at solutions, and developing some prototypes to then be used. I can go to the next one. I shall quickly look at this overview. So the AgriLab we've been running for about 4 to 5 years now in Cambodia and Indonesia. The rural areas, Kampong Chenang and Persat, we just did one last week actually in Persat as well, and Rita will talk about how it's been run in Indonesia. Working with the communities, some of the challenges that they identified produced solutions, and some of the solutions were, for example, rice seeders, carts that could be attached to wheelchairs for collecting water, for being able to move goods around the farm, and also importantly goods from the farm to market. So different points of the value chain, really, different points of the whole system. We had some power assist modules that came up, some assistive farming tools, adaptive chicken coops, water pump carts, all sorts of things emerged over the process. How we got there was really doing a little bit of that but why approach again. So someone had problems with getting cassava to market. Well, why? What was the reason for that? Well, the cassava was really heavy, so how did we transport it? Okay, it's a transport issue, but why? So then the transport wouldn't work on the farm in certain seasons. Okay, but, so we were really stripping back, unpacking the core issues to start developing the solutions. And I think bringing so many different people together from such a diverse sort of background with engineers, farmers, academia, etc., it really opened us up to some different kind of solutions. I'm going to hand over to Rita now to talk about AgriLab in Indonesia. Hi, Rita.
Hi, good morning, Vienna. Greetings from Pusat Rehabilitation YAKKUM here in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. It's an honor for us to be included in a Zero Project 2022. So today we proudly share our works in AgriLab in Indonesia. So my name is Rita. I'm a woman with disabilities with 7 fingers and has a big smile for anyone here. And now I'm wearing a blue dress. So this is a traditional pattern named Luri in Indonesia. So talking about AgriLab in Indonesia, we has successfully involved persons with disability who are also members of 4 DPOs in Purworejo, Central Java, Indonesia. Its essential elements are on direct and active participation of 74 people with 65% person with disabilities, including a woman with disabilities. So AgriLab through CCB is the first methodology in Indonesia highlight on an agriculture approach, which has been the closest and day-to-day culture most of people in Indonesia, including persons with disability here in rural areas. Emphasizing on the CBR twin track approach in advocacy aspect, AgriLab has been acknowledged even in national level, where the Ministry of Village of the Republic of Indonesia state that the AgriLab is feasible to be duplicated in the villages and should be included in the village fund budget. About CCB and prototypes that David mentioned before have been used and replicated by the DPOs as an approach to not only to produce inclusive innovation to address the issues, but more important is to increase inclusive awareness in the rural areas. And then the CCB methodology uses 5 ways ways to comprising. First, they can identifying challenges. The second, they can prioritizing which challenges they want to focus on. And then the third, they can choosing the best ideas as the final concept for the prototyping. And the last thing is they can testing the prototype so that to be the problem solution. Next slide, please. First and foremost, this methodology has allowed people with disabilities to gain their self-confidence, to learn how to brainstorm and to do problem-solving mechanism, and also to work together among other participants. But not only that, they have been seen as the expert of their own needs. They're also able to work hand in hand with the facilitators, with the communities to ensure their design are successfully manifested into usable prototypes to bring actual benefit in increasing income and promote a sense of independence, which will surely lower the existing of stigma against persons with disability, especially in the Purworejo, Central Java. At the greater community level, people have learned how to communicate and engage with, as well as value people with different types of disabilities, their ideas, their solution, and also positive capabilities in an inclusive way. Next slide. So this is the picture of one of our successful prototypes. So the prototypes first came from a neglected mushroom cultivation business from one of our assisted TPOs. Then through CCB, they first identified their major challenge and designed a solution, and surprisingly end up with this prototype. They call it with automatic water fogging system. So this prototype or assistive technology has motivated them to continue the business again, as it proven to be more time efficient, to allow them managing their daily activities, including taking care of their family, because because we have a many participants is a woman with disability and without disability have a multi household tasks. So it can help them a lot. And also the design is economical, and the work of the process is simpler, especially for a person with disability. The technology is also accessible for people with visual impairment, so they can include it in every inch of the agricultural activities in the mushroom cultivation house. So yeah, Indonesia is one of the biggest agriculture country, and hence AgriLab has a significant potential to continue the success, to be implemented, replicated in other areas in Indonesia through an agriculture approach, which involves persons with disabilities. So I give the slide back to you, David.
Okay, thank you, Rita. Still got 2 minutes. We were asked to talk a little bit about the empowerment, and thanks, Rita, for bringing the AgriLab to life a bit more with the practical examples. The impact that we chose to focus on was the impact more on empowerment, because we felt over all of the AgriLabs that the power of innovation and the technology to address the barriers to inclusion, it had much deeper sort of impact, really. The involvement of women with disabilities it became really clear. There were farmers that would say to us they'd not been involved in solutions or discussions at that level before amongst their village, and suddenly they're designing solutions. Increased confidence, increased participation, that came back to us a lot. We saw the power to unleash ideas and the social impact that had, that people were respected for really bringing ideas to life. The respect for the local knowledge and the content that was there. I mean, the experts, the farmers are the real stars of this, because they're the experts and leading this. And the ownership in the design, it really leads to pride. You know, we'd gone back to villages and people were really taking care of some of the, there was one woman that actually slept with the bolt that went from her wheelchair. I'll show a picture in a minute. That went from her wheelchair to a cart that she designed, and the bolt was so important she actually slept with it under her pillow each night. You know, there was a real sense of pride over the innovations and over the creativity. There's a slide now with two photos which links to the cart that I just described. The photo at the bottom shows our farmer with a simple cart and the attachment to the wheelchair, which was kind of the innovation part because the bolt stabilized it. And the picture on the right-hand side shows her actually using the cart to collect water. And that really opened up her independence. Before, she used to have to wait for other people to get water for her, to water her own crop, and sometimes she couldn't. If no one turned up, she couldn't. So, you know, it just opened up a whole independence for herself. In her own words, she said, "I feel great. I can fetch water by myself. I feel great to know other people with disability." This brought her in contact with people in similar experiences to herself, and she got strength and power from that. I enjoyed being part of the project. I could learn about designing various tools to help us as people with disability without requiring any money. Maybe not any money, but maybe little money, but without requiring much money. And this I really love, because the theme of today's event is around replicable issues. So in her own words, she said, "Yes, I can do it again by myself." I just found that so powerful. She was pretty fantastic. Really quickly, I know the next steps, we have to reflect, because it's easy to say things, it's easy to claim, it's easy to say, yes, all these things happen, but we need to go back and check that is it really successful. We have to reflect on the learning in Cambodia and the learning in Indonesia, and we've got to really look at that and consolidate, actually. The inter-country regional experience and sharing is something we really want to do, because there's interest in this, and it is unlocking a lot of potential, but we need to get better at it. Of course, we need to secure funding. I know everyone says that, but we do need funding, of course, for the sustainability, the growth. We have to revisit the designs because some of them are scalable. They can really be scaled to market, which would be fantastic if we could produce them. Importantly, we've got to revisit the communities. You can't just leave them, behind after they've gotten into this momentum. Then we've got to kind of make sure they're still engaged. Further develop prototypes, promote the concept. We've had lots of discussions with new potential partners. And finally, we want to organise a model technology event. So kind of a model farm. Many people say to us, this all sounds great, but we want to see it. At the moment, we need to be able to have a space that we can really showcase these kind of initiatives that show the wonderful creativity from our farmers. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much, everyone, for your attention and for listening. Thank you.
Thank you for that, David and Rita. And last but not least, we have Shruti More from the Samphia Foundation from India.
Hello, namaste everyone. My name is Shruti More and I'm the founder and the executive director of Samphia Foundation, and clinically I'm an occupational therapist. Before I speak more about our work, I'd like to give you a glimpse into the life of our children in Kullu, Himachal Pradesh. So Himachal Pradesh is a northern state of the country, and it is just at the foothill of the mighty Indian Himalayas. There should be an audio to the video. Thank you.
1 in every 10 children has a developmental disability in India. Limited therapy services, challenging mountain terrain with adverse weather conditions, lack of awareness and knowledge in parents, and taboo about disability are barriers to the inclusion of these children. Samphia in the local Kulwi dialect means ability. Through our work, we want to focus on the ability part of disability. This is Sonali, and this is where the story of Samphia Foundation begins.
Thank you. As mentioned in the video, Samphia in the local Kulwi dialect means ability. Through our work, we want to focus on the ability part of the disability. As mentioned and as you all must have seen, because we are located in a tough mountain terrain, that along with adverse weather conditions, like we are 4 months under snow, rain almost throughout the season, inaccessible roads and poor general infrastructure in the villages. So it's a semi-rural, rural kind of a location. And stigma about disabilities. These are some of our major barriers towards inclusion of children and people with disabilities from where I come. Samphia Foundation was established in 2019 with a larger mission of inclusion and how we can overcome some of these barriers or problems that we face. Our vision is an inclusive world for people with diverse abilities. Our mission is to work with and in mountain communities to overcome these barriers by providing key services. And the key services that we provide are assessment, diagnosis, early intervention therapy, education, advocacy, and everything and anything that leads to inclusion. Our first solution is our center-based early intervention therapy services, under which we provide specialized therapy services like physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and special education to children in the age group of 0 to 18. Our focus area is 0 to 7 years, that is the crucial early intervention stage. So at our center based in the central Kullu town, parents come in with their children. There's an assessment, a therapy plan, and children are put into a therapy program that could vary from anywhere between 3 months to 2 to 3 years, depending upon how their prognosis is. And then children are discharged or they continue receiving therapy for till they achieve their developmental goals. Our biggest challenge with this program was that it was serving children who could access our center, but that was only a fraction of the larger population of children who are in Kullu. Only about 30 to 40% of the children who could access our center-based services. And personally, that was very frustrating for us that we have this specialized center and all the facilities available, but the actual children are located in these villages far off. And one of the child, Sonali, whom you all saw in the last slide in the video, there was no chance that this child can ever come to our center. That is where we started thinking what else could be done. And that is where our Therapy on Wheels program came into being. So Therapy on Wheels is basically a mobile therapy van which is designed in a way, in an accessible way, that we can provide all therapy services like physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy on board the bus. The bus has all aids and equipment, like it has a treadmill for our gait training. It has all speech therapy equipments. It has all the aids and toys to perform occupational therapy sessions on board the bus. The bus consists of a team of 2 therapists, a special educator, a nurse, and a social worker. And this bus goes to assigned places in the Kullu block. So on the route, we already have children marked who, there's a criteria for children to go into this program. So mainly the children who cannot access our center get services under this program. So in a day, if we have 2 therapists, about 10 to 12 children can be seen for an hour-long therapy session on the bus. We had not planned it in that manner, but the bus was launched in late 2020, just when we were coming out of the COVID situation lockdown. And especially during that time, the bus was a real asset because there were still restrictions around traveling, and the entire protocol around COVID safety led us to take the bus to the children, which wouldn't have been possible if we did not have the bus. So in that way, the bus also became a very effective solution during times like COVID, and we know that in future, if we have a situation like this, we have this another way of reaching out to our children. The bus was funded under CSR by a Indian organization called the Indian Renewable Energy, who continue to fund the program. Here you could see some of the sessions happening on board the bus. So at a time, 2 children can be seen for sessions. The bus has a ramp at the rear end, and it also has a podium which can be used to conduct awareness sessions. Up until now, 84 children have are receiving therapy under the Therapy on Wheels program. And we want to reach to more and more children. Our third solution is our inclusion program. So with our first 2 programs, the early intervention program and the Therapy on Wheels, our primary aim is to work with children and their families in terms of with the families, train them and make them equal partners in the home program management of children. But the third aspect of our work is our inclusion program, wherein we work with the larger community. As I mentioned, stigma about disability is one of the major barriers for our work. And through this inclusion program, we mainly work with the larger community to create awareness around disability and to empower the community so that they can take proactive steps to create an inclusive environment for children and the families of children with disabilities. So we do this by conducting school camp, villages camp, public events, social media campaigns, a lot of print media with a larger vision of inclusion. Our impact so far in terms of numbers is we've been able to impact 177 children in terms of their prognosis, independence, and participation. That is mainly through our clinical work with the children. And with the families, we are able to mainly impact like the stress level and their confidence to be able to take care of their children at home. And with the community, about 250,000 residents have been involved in our inclusion and awareness and advocacy campaigns. So to continue, as mentioned, like the district which we work in, we have about 1,700 children with disabilities, and we've reached only up to 300 children with disabilities up until now. Our biggest challenge is that we are not able to find enough human resources, by which I mean trained therapists and rehab workers to be able to reach these children. So we need, like through the larger network of Zero Conference, I want to reach out to professional volunteers. We run a volunteer program, and I think like the environment that we work in it could be very challenging and stimulating for a professional who could like there could be a very good exchange program between our program and international volunteers, where our latest evidence-based technology expertise could come in and could get a platform to actually implement and see the effect of the latest innovations in a low-resource setting. So it could be a very ideal volunteering opportunity program for professionals. So I'd like to reach out to professional volunteers who would be interested to work with us. And of course, funding. We need more funds to be able to implement these programs at a larger scale. Our dream is that we have the Therapy on Wheels program in all districts of Himachal Pradesh, which is about 14 districts of Himachal Pradesh, for which we need more funding to be able to scale our programs. You all could contact us on our website and our email ID to know more. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Shruti. I see that we're tight for time. We've got 5 minutes for questions. I've got some noted down here, but I would like to open up the floor for audience questions, if there are any. Yes, Khalil.
Thank you very much. This is Khalil from World Vision, Iraq. So my question would be for home modification for PWDs. So I'm asking, how are you ensuring the sustainability and the future operation and maintenance for these facilities that you have modified at the household level? And what kind of the accessibility guidelines you are using? Do you have a specific accessibility guidelines, or you are using the general accessibility guideline?
Thank you for that, Khalil. I think that's a question more directed to Siri, right, for the home modifications part of it.
Yes.
Siri, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your questions. The maintenance of the house is also our questions as well, and we ask after we finish with the modification, how can persons with disabilities live in their house and also with their family members. And we At the moment, we think that we are going to train the builder who are living in community. They are community members, and some of them they have the construction skills as well, and then they are very happy and they can volunteer for the maintenance of the house. And for the second question, for the guideline, at the moment we use two mainly concepts. We use universal design, and also we use the ICF, the International Classification of Functioning from WHO. And with ICF, we believe the interaction between environmental factors and body functions. And for environmental factor, we use the universal design. So altogether, we are trying to, integrate two conceptual frameworks at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Siri. I think we have time for one other question, if there's any from the audience. Otherwise, I will ask a question that I've been wanting to ask, and this is for all the panelists. So we've been talking a lot about how you've worked with the persons with disabilities and their families, but what about the cultural challenges in the wider community? Has this been an issue that you face, and how have you overcome this issue? And I'm opening this up to all of the panelists, so anyone can feel free to jump in. All right, then, I'm going to pick on people. So I would like to hear about this from Rahma from Suarise.
Okay, thank you, Sumita.
Thank you.
So I guess the relevance from the company to implement, it's totally different with the person philanthropist issue. So they kind of interested to contribute more, especially for people with disability, because, well, Indonesia is mostly majority country, and doing some good deeds for people with disability, believe to have a beneficial for in terms of the religion aspect. So sometimes when I advocate these issues, and when they don't have the other motivation in why we have to implement digital accessibility to our products, I use the reference of the Amal Jariyah. Maybe some of you know, it's like continuous good deeds that will return to you over and over again when you remove obstacles from others. So it's like when you develop the one line code, you're impacting that this million of people in using your apps. And so far from the feedbacks, it's kind of brings self-motivation for them. Although the company does not reinforce the implementation, they start to do it as their own dedication in making the platform is more accessible for people with disability.
Thank you so much
Yes.
for that, Rahma. And also, I think when we were in discussions, Shruti, you mentioned that religion played a huge part in changing people's mindsets and families' mindsets. Would you be able to weigh in on this?
Yes. So religion is is a big influencing factor in everything where I come from, and it influences health in a lot of ways. So where it wasn't very uncommon for us to have families who tell us that they have been going to the temples or the local shamans and the devtas to take their blessings or suggestions on how do they take care of their child with a disability. And so initially we used to try to talk them out of it, but that in fact created a bigger barrier between us and our families. So what we did in Kulu was that we made this religion aspect of it a part of our system. So there is this big annual festival in Kulu called the Kulu Dashera, wherein all the gods or the deities of the mountain towns come down with their representatives for 7 days. So in those 7 days, we reach out to these representatives of God and give them information about the work that we do. And over the years, what has happened is now that every year after the annual Dashera event, we have families and references of children with disabilities coming to our center on the reference of these gods and devtas. So we have to be very sensitive about these things, because religion is like science for a lot of the people I come from. So we need to make that a part of our system. And in many ways, religion can be a asset if we have the right approach of making it a part of our system.
Thank you so much for that, Shruti. I see that we're out of time right now. So with that, thank you all to my panelists, online as well as physical, for taking the time to share with us about their innovations. If all of you at home would like to find out more, please feel free to reach out to them or reach out to us at the Zero Project. And I hope you are all having a wonderful Zero Project Conference 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much.